Hi, my name is Jimmy Blackman, and this video is for the beginner in archery. Whether you just bought a new bow or you're thinking about going out and buying one, hopefully this video will help you understand the equipment, how to set it up, and understand a little more broadly all the terms associated with archery. So let's get started by talking about the types of bows they are. We'll begin all the way to my right over here, your left. This is a longbow. Generally in what's considered traditional archery today, there are longbows and recurves. The differentiation of the longbow and the recurve is in the limb itself. The longbow, the string, touches the nock of the limb only at the nock on each end. So it doesn't touch the limb at any other point at all. Whereas the recurve, as you can see, the string touches the limb and you see the recurve of the limb. Now there are some longbows that have it's not a perfectly straight limb, but it can't, to be considered a longbow, it can't touch the limb anywhere except at the nock on either end. As I said, this is a recurve. This is a 1968 Bear Tamerlane, a few years old, but still shoots great. And again, the parts of the bow, this is the upper limb, the lower limb. These grooves are the nocks where the string fits in at the bottom of the limb and the top of the limb. This, of course, is the string. The center section, or the handle, is called the riser. This portion here where the arrow goes is called the shelf of the bow. And on the string is center served, and there are two nock indicators here. I'll bring the bow a little closer. And those nock indicators are where the nock of the arrow goes before it is placed on the shelf to be shot. So those nock indicators are just that, an indicator of where you nock the arrow on the string. And then the bow goes on the rest. This is a little plastic Hoyt Super Rest, elevated rest. Some of the traditional bows today are shot off the shelf and some use elevated rest. And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. But that is the parts, those are the parts of the bow. Now you'll see there are different types of long bows and recurves. This is a long bow because the string only touches on the end, as you can see. But this is a Fox Triple Crown. This has more of a pistol grip style grip. It's a little more mass weight to this bow. All these long bows are shot off the shelf. And then there's what we call a self bow. This is a bow I made. This is a piece of Osage. It was just an Osage tree cut down, and then a stave was made and we formed a bow into it. It's a self bow because it's one piece of wood that's been shaped into a bow that does everything itself. There's no laminations to this or no performance enhancing materials. It's just a piece of wood that has been made from a tree all the way into a bow. It's pretty simple, as my buddy Mark Baggett says. Just making a bow's easy. Just remove all the wood that doesn't need to be there and you got a bow left. So this is a self bow. Let's talk about different types of arrows. There are, this is a wood arrow. This arrow was made by Paul Jalon at Elite Arrows. Paul's about the best arrowsmith in the country that I know of anyway. The arrow consists of a shaft, which is the piece here in the middle, the main portion of the arrow. Feathers, some people use 3 feathers, some use 4. The feathers range anywhere from 1.25 inches to some people use 5.5 inch feathers. The more feather you have, the more drag it creates, so it slows the arrow down, but it cleans the arrow flight up quickly, so it straightens the arrow out as it goes into flight very quickly. This is the nock of the arrow. It's the portion that hooks onto the string, and then this is the point. It's called a fill point because it's just a point that sticks into anything as opposed to a broadhead, which is like razors that you would use for hunting. There are glue-on points used on wood arrows, and then there are screw-in points, which is an arrow made with an insert like this aluminum arrow. Of course, arrows began with wood and then went to fiberglass and various other materials, and then throughout the 70s most everyone shot aluminum arrows. Aluminum arrows have an insert in them. The shaft is made of aluminum. They have an insert, and then the point screws in and out. You can get different weight points to tune your arrows. And then of course you still have the same in terms of feathers and the nock, so no change or different to that. Then after aluminum came carbon. This is a carbon arrow. It is a screw-in, has an insert in it, and you can screw the points in. No different here except that it's carbon. Carbon, of course, can be matched perfectly. A dozen of them the same weight, same straightness and everything. So this is a true arrow. A piece of wood is not as precise as a piece of carbon. Aluminum gets bent. It can be straightened to a degree, but it does get bent every now and then. Carbon usually either breaks or doesn't, but they're tough. They're hard to break. So they're you know, a set of carbon arrows hold up pretty well unless you're really rough with them. So this is a carbon arrow. And then this is kind of a larger diameter arrow. You can get carbons in a multitude of sizes. This is a Easton ACE. So this is an aluminum arrow with a carbon sleeve over it. It's a barrel shaft, so it's battered in the middle, skinnier on the ends, helps it clean up in flight quicker. Got little small feathers on this and tiny little knocks. And these are glue-in points on it, so you glue the points into this one. So those are the types of arrows you can get. They're all good. Wood breaks fairly easy, but it's pretty, it's nice, it's fun to mess with. If you're, you know, if archery's a hobby for you, you like spending time tinkering with the stuff, the woods are wonderful to work with. If you just want to get out and get to shooting to them pretty quickly, then carbon's, you know, pretty easy, but it's a little more expensive. Aluminum is relatively cheap because people don't shoot them as much anymore. But aluminum's great. I like to hunt with aluminum. They're a little heavier than carbon is, but great arrows all the way around. Okay, let's talk about some of the other gear. This is an arm guard. This arm guard was made by Art Vincent out of Nashville. He's a phenomenal leathersmith and artist. The arm guard goes on the arm because when you shoot the bow, the string brushes the arm just a little bit. Now you shouldn't, you got some mechanics going on wrong if you're just beating your arm to death, but you should brush your arm just a little bit on the shots. And the arm guard helps protect your arm. You can get, this is a leather arm guard. You can get little small plastic ones, a multitude of different types of arm guards, but an arm guard is pretty much one of those staple pieces of equipment that you should use. Then you got to have something on your fingers, your string fingers that are drawing to protect your fingers. After a while, it'll start to wear on your fingers shooting a lot. This is a shooting stalls. It's a what's considered a glove. They go on the fingers like that and snap around the wrist. These are a little thicker. I've got another video, if you look on my YouTube site, that talks about, goes in depth into the difference between these and a tab and how that affects shooting. So take a look at that if you want a more in-depth view of that. This is a tab. It's a 3-under tab. Tab, you just slide your finger through that strap, put your fingers on it, put it on the string and draw it back and come off. I like a tab. I shoot a tab more than anything else because I like the feel of the tab on the string. I like it. I can get the string a little closer to my face, the arrow in under my eye a little bit easier with a tab, so I use that. But they also make 3-under tabs. So there are two different ways really that folks shoot a bow. One is 3-under. So if I have an arrow knocked on the bow and I'm going to shoot, I put all 3 fingers under the string. The beauty of this is it gets the arrow up closer to the eye, so I'm looking where I'm looking. The line from my eye to the target is closer to that of the arrow to the target. But that's 3-under. That's one way to hold it. The other is a split finger tab, which is 1 finger above the arrow, 2 fingers below the arrow, drawn like that. That brings the knock of the arrow down a little bit further. So if you're anchoring in here to your face, the arrow is a little bit lower. So nothing wrong with either one of those. It's a personal preference. So you just have to get out and decide kind of your style of shooting and what works best for you. But this is a split finger tab. You can shoot the glove split finger or 3-under, and then they make the 3-under tabs. Okay, so that covers the parts of the arrow and the parts of the bow for just kind of all the standard pieces. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about a different type of bow. This is a recurve bow. What most people refer to this as is a Olympic style bow. It does look like the Olympic style. However, the Olympians only shoot one class, and that is a sighted bow. So you'll see them with the large stabilizers, and you'll see a sight on their bow. This is a non-sighted bow. But this riser, it's a 3-piece bow, and I'll show you how to put one of these together in a minute. But the limbs detach from the riser. It's a metal riser, aluminum cast. And then I've got a little bit of weight added to it here, like a stabilizer, but just a short one. But this bow has a magnetic breakaway rest and a plunger. Again, I've got more videos that go into depth in this equipment, but you see the arrow rests on this little magnetic rest, and then this is the plunger that goes in and out as you shoot like that. So you can adjust the arrow's impact left and right based on the tension you put in the plunger. This is a target bow I shoot for competition. You can change the grips on this bow, so you can shoot a flat wristed or low wrist, a medium wrist, or a high wrist, whatever your preference is. And you can change them out, just a couple of screws on either side, and adjust that to your liking. You can shoot several different types of rests on this bow if you want to, and then the plunger just makes it a lot easier to adjust the tuning of the arrow. Otherwise, this bow is just like any of the other bows, recurves or long bows. This, some people talk about the Hill style bow, referring to Howard Hill. This is a Howard Hill Wesley Special. It is what we call a D-style bow or a flat bow. You can see it's just a continuous arc in the handle or in the limbs, and then it's kind of an oval shaped handle and a small shot. That's the style of bow Howard Hill shot, so it is called a Hill style bow. A lot of people really enjoy these bows, like them. Others like that pistol grip handle, so you'll see them with a Fox or a different variant of handle on the bow. Okay, let's move on to putting a bow together here. Okay, so this is my son's riser. This is a Tradtech Titan II riser, and you can see he is shooting it off the shelf. So he just has some furniture pads there for a strike plate and an arrow rest, so the arrow just sits on there. But you can see this is the ILF, International Limb Fabrication system here. So the limbs just slide in to the riser. Now, the beauty of this system is, especially for a beginner, if you want to start out with a lighter weight, so you get a bow that's, or get some limbs that are maybe 30, 35 pounds, it's comfortable for you to shoot, to get used to archery and to get comfortable shooting, and then you want to move up in weight. Say you want to hunt. Most states require 40 pounds in the United States for hunting, so then you can just buy another set of limbs that are heavier limbs. You can, they all will snap in and fit, and you don't have to have the same type of limb that you have riser. So these are Tradtech Black Max limbs. You could shoot some other company, Win and Win limbs if you wanted to. And there are a lot of, a variation of price ranges and types of limbs out there, but they just snap into the riser like that. And then we're going to put the string on. Now, I've got the knock indicators at the top of the string, so I know what that is. I always just kind of loop this through so my string doesn't change the brace height of the bow. Now, we'll talk about brace height in just a minute. So I loop those together, and then I just pull the bow here, put the top one, pull the string apart rather, put the top one on the limb, the bottom one on this limb. And you're not going to be able to see this, but I recommend a bowstringer. A bowstringer is just really a piece of cord with two leather loops on it. You put over each end of the bowstring, and then you just step on it. I'm too close zoomed in here for you to see it, so I'm just going to go ahead and string the bow so you can see it there. So now we've got the bow strung. These are string silencers here. They just dampen the vibration in the string and make it a little bit quieter. But let's talk about brace height. Now you're setting up your bow. You've got your limbs you wanted. You went out and bought whatever weight limbs you were comfortable with. I recommend 30, 35 pounds to start with so you can comfortably work on form. You get too heavy and you're shaking and you wear out too easy, you're not going to be able to shoot a lot of arrows in each session. So, and then you can, as I said, just buy some more limbs. Get a riser you like and stick with it and stay with it. Now, a couple of things that you want to be constant all the time is the brace height. The brace height is measured. This is a bow square. Just a cheap little piece of metal with some measurements on it that you can get at Lancaster Archery, Three Rivers Archery, or your local archery shop if you have one. They aren't as common as they used to be. But it's measured from the throat of the grip. This is the grip, so the deepest part of the grip to the string. So 8 inches is what Logan is shooting on this bow there. So that is the brace height. If you twist the string, then it will, if you twist it up, then it will shorten the string, so it will pull the limbs down and it'll increase the brace height. If you untwist the string backwards, then it will lengthen the string, the limbs will go up, and it will shorten the brace height of the bow. You'll have to check with your bow manufacturer to see what the recommended brace height is for the bow that you've bought. As I said, Logan's shooting 8 inches here. So then we want that brace height. Once we decide on what is best for that bow, we want to stick with that brace height. Check it often. Make sure that as you take the string on and off, you haven't accidentally unwound it or something hasn't happened when you put your bow together, so that now you're 8.5 inches or you're 7.5 inches, because it'll affect the impact of your arrows in the target. The next thing we want to do is tying on our knock indicators that we said. Generally, as you tune your arrows, and you can look at one of my other videos for arrow tuning for how to do that, but as you tune your arrows, you'll find the knocking point in which the arrow gets best flight. It's not flying knock high to the target, and it's not flying knock low or so knock low that it bounces off of the riser on the way out of the bow. Whatever that is, this one, Logan is set up at 1/2 inch. So he's 1/2 inch above center. When you put the bow square on the bow, you lay it on the shelf like that and hook it to the string, and then look at where the knock indicators will put the knock of the arrow right there in the center at 1/2 inch. So I know that every time we go out, and I just keep a bow square in my bag, every time we go out and string the bow up, we go somewhere to shoot, check real quickly, 8 inches, yep, that's right, or no, I need to put a twist in it or take a twist out to make sure it's 8, and then I throw this on to make sure that these haven't slipped up and down. And this is just a piece of center serving tied onto the string so that it's nice and tight, so that it doesn't move, and those knock indicators are always the same. Slap this on here, check it 1/2 inch, and I know the bow's gonna shoot the arrows, if I do my part, to the same spot each time. So that's really the setup of the bow. Logan shoots a low-wristed grip on this bow, and he's shooting 25 pounds. He's 11 years old, 25 pounds on it. He doesn't pull it 28 inches, so he's really only getting about 19 pounds, 18, 19 pounds at his draw length out of this. So that's another thing. The limbs are calibrated to a 28-inch draw, so and some limbs will show you at different length bows what those poundages difference will be. So you might get a set of limbs that say on a 64-inch bow it'll give you 28 pounds, on a 66-inch bow it'll give you 26 pounds. You just have to check your limbs and see what size or length riser that they're calibrated for. But at your draw length, some people have shorter arms. They may only pull 24 inches. Some people have really long arms. They may pull 31 inches. They're going to get a different weight drawing the same bow, because they're drawing the bow further or less based on the length of their arms. So you have to keep that in mind as you go. Well, that covers the parts of the bow. I hope this was helpful for you. And on this next section, we'll talk a little bit about just basic general form. Okay, in this section we're going to talk about just basic form. We're going to start from the ground up. We'll begin with our feet. Okay, so as I said, the first thing we'll talk about is our feet. We'll start at the ground and go up. So if we lay an arrow down, as I have here, going in front of me, pointing directly at the target. If we close our stance, it is our toes are both on it. We square to the target, completely square. This works for a lot of folks. I shoot this way, but some people shoot a more open stance. So to open our stance, we simply open this foot up, and that brings our orientation a little bit more open to the target. The arrow is still pointed at the target. So this is something that you'll just have to work with to see what works best for you. I tend to see people, when they open up, keep their hips open to the target more, and sometimes they don't get good rotation in the upper body. They forget to close the hips back up. For me, it's easier to square people to the target and then keep the hips straight to the front so that I'm square to the target. I get good rotation up top and good alignment on the target. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is our grip in the bow. So I'm square to the target now. I've got my feet right, and every time I go to the target, as many years I've been shooting my whole life, and I still, when I walk up to the target, I look at the target, I make sure my feet are where they're supposed to be. As I mentioned, my hips, I make sure that my hips aren't here, even though my feet are here, that I'm rotated right. and then I look at my target and I work my grip. You want that grip to be repeatable. You want it to be exactly the same every time. As I mentioned, the oval style handle in the heel bows over there, I have trouble repeating my grip every time the same in those. So I prefer a more pistol style grip. This is a high wristed grip in this Bear. I can repeat it every time, but you want the grip, this line in the grip out here on the side, to be in the lifeline of the hand. You want bone-on-bone alignment when you get to anchor. So in order to do that, you want that bow to sit right into the lifeline of your hand. One of the things that almost everyone does when they start shooting archery, I almost always look to correct this right off the bat. It seems to be just intuitive, is people grip the bow. They grip it hard when they're shooting, especially when you first start shooting, because everything is awkward. It feels uncomfortable. So you grip the bow and pull it back really hard. So on the grip, we want to let the bow just sit loosely in our hand, and we want when we pull the string, it pulls the bow back into our hand. The bow just to sit against our bone structure there, and then when we let go of the string, we want the bow just to jump to target out of our hand. Again, I've got a form video that covers this more in depth. I use a finger sling which goes around the bow, and it catches the bow when it goes forward out of my hand. We don't want to grip it, because if we grip it and we've got muscles tight, when we let go of the string, that bow is going to go somewhere and it's going to throw that arrow off, and we don't want to do that. We want to let the bow shoot the arrow the same every time. It is most repeatable when we're not gripping the bow, because one time I might be completely loose, one time a little bit of pressure, another time a lot of pressure. That's affecting where that arrow ends up when it gets down range. Okay, so that's my grip. I got my hand like I want it there. Now, you can draw the bow coming up, you can draw the bow coming down, you can set it up and draw it straight back. I prefer to get the bow arm up relatively close to the target, and then I put my tab on the string. Now, you want to make sure that your fingers are up under the nock of the arrow every time, that you're in the exact same spot. I do a fairly deep hook on it. Align the first joint of my fingers there on the string. I get those in there nice and tight, just hook them around the string, and then I get the bow up, and then I draw the bow. Now when we draw the bow, again, we don't want to squeeze the bow, we want to let it just put pressure against our bone structure, and I focus on taking the elbow to the rear, like a J if you drew that line with the elbow in, and I go to anchor. Anchor is a point where we are on our face, that is repeatable every time that we go to, so that everything's the same in archery. If you do everything identically the same, no matter what it is, the arrow will wind up at the same spot every time. So to make it more repeatable, I keep the bow square to the target, and then I draw it to the anchor. And for me, I anchor with that C in my hand behind my jaw, my middle finger in the corner of my mouth, and I touch my nose to the feather of the arrow. It is different for different people. Some people anchor higher, some people anchor lower. If you watch the Olympians, they're anchoring under their chin. Remember, they're using a sight. If you took the arrow down there and tried to shoot like that without sights, then the arrow is way lower than your eye to target line, and you're going to probably shoot high every time. It'd be very difficult for your mind to calculate that. Again, I've got a form video that covers the draw and creeping and a lot of bad habits and things like that. I'd encourage you to watch that after you get through this basic video. So an anchor for me is here. Once I get to anchor, I want good bone-on-bone alignment. So if you drew a line through my elbow, shoulders, down my arm, all the way to the bow, you would have one straight line that gets no muscle involvement. So that's my anchor. I can hold the bow there very comfortably all day. If I'm out here somewhere, then the bow's trying to collapse me, and I may creep a little bit, or I may collapse. If I get back here and get that bone-on-bone alignment, then I got a good line. I can hold it all day. It's very comfortable because it's pushing this way, and that's hard to compact me that way and collapse. And then I'm just squeezing the rhomboids in my back, rotating that J on around, and just relaxing the fingers and coming off the string. So that is the release. We don't go into anchor and try to set up, hold real still, and then sneak off the string or anything. We get there, we sustain our pulling at anchor, and then we just expand through, keep on pulling, but relax our fingers and let them come off the string. Once we release, we want that bow still up there till the arrow hits the target. A bad habit is people let go and they drop their arm, or they let go and they do that more. That's more common probably. They do that. They got a little muscle involvement there. We want to make sure we're not doing that. You ought to still be able, if I was standing behind you and when you come off that string, I ought to still be able to look through the bow and see the target down there through that sight window on the bow. So that's kind of just a simple basics. If you want a really in-depth guide on your form how-tos from the ground up, buy Masters of the Bare Bow Volume 3. Rod Jenkins and Larry Yin both do segments, a little bit different style, a little bit different steps, but both two great options on the same video. You can get that at Three Rivers Archery or Lancaster Archery Supply. It's probably, in my opinion, it's the best video on the market, and it walks step by step, a really in-depth video on your form and how to shoot. I'm just giving you a quick overview for the beginner to get you started, and I would encourage you to continue taking it to the next level by watching those videos. I hope this has been helpful for you. Happy shooting.